Creamer Media's Mining Weekly Online is speaking to James Campbell, the Managing Director of Botswana Diamonds. And we're going to question James on his activities in South Africa in the diamond exploration field. James, can you tell us how prospective South Africa is and what you are doing in the field of diamond exploration under the banner of Rutomi in South Africa?
Myself and my colleagues have long believed that Botswana and South Africa are two of the most highly prospective diamond destinations in the world. Botswana Diamonds has been very active in Botswana for some time and continues to be so. But earlier this year, Botswana Diamonds announced an earn-in agreement with a company called Rutomi, which has got extensive prospects in South Africa. Those prospects cover three main areas. The first one is something called the Thorny River project, which is east of Mokopane in the Limpopo province and very close to the previously run Marsfontein mine, which was operated by a De Beers Southern Era joint venture and had an astonishing 3.5 days payback. So we have been working in that area a great deal, and I can elaborate on that in a moment. The second area is in the northwest province, very close to Petra's Gila mine, where we've recently announced the discovery of a small kimberlite pipe. The third area is in the Free State, where we have the vast majority of our ground, some 40,000 hectares, and 10 kimberlites, where we've only just started work, and this is all in the Kimberley-Koffiefontein-Jagersfontein corridor. Our three areas have got very different kind of diamond assortments. If I look at the Free State area first, the Free State area is known for low-grade, high-value deposits. You can go and look at the public records of Petra at Koffiefontein. It's a very low-grade mine, but it's a very, very high diamond value mine. Jagersfontein produced some fabulous stones when it was actually operating. And so our focus in the Free State area is to find those low-grade, but very high-value, beautiful, large-quality diamonds. So that's our focus there. Our focus in the northwest and on our Thorny River project is somewhat different. This focus here is on smaller kimberlites, which have very high grades and high diamond values. Just to give you an understanding of that, Marsfontein mine, which is, as I mentioned earlier, the De Beers Southern Era joint venture, had a payback of 3.5 days, had an average grade of 172 carats per 100 tons, and a diamond value over $200 a carat. But it was only 0.4 hectares in size. So what we're looking at here is we're looking for these small kimberlites in the Limpopo and in the northwest, which have these very, very high dollar per ton ratios, so you can actually economically mine it. And in fact, with our Thorny River project, we've actually spent a considerable amount of money on that this year. We've done well over 50 holes. We've done 3 geophysical surveys. We're in the process of doing a surface sampling. We've done microdiamond work, and we are targeting our maiden inferred resource by the end of the year.
And do you mine and make money at the same time? I mean, do you actually, while you are exploring like this, can you bankroll what you're doing by finding diamonds, or isn't that a part of the proposition?
No, sadly not. When you're operating under a prospecting permit, you value your diamonds. You actually can't sell your diamonds. You've actually got to have a mining license for that. And at the moment, Botswana Diamonds is a purely exploration company funded by equity, chiefly from friends and family out of Dublin at the moment. So we will come to a point where we'll go into an indicated resource study, do pre-feasibility studies, do feasibility studies, and do all that kind of work. And yes, it is our intention, if these projects prove commercial, to actually start mining. And once we start mining, we can then use that revenue to actually complement or substitute the money that we get from equity to do our exploration on our other projects.
And do you agree with the contention that South Africa is underexplored, not only in diamonds, but I think it was specifically said about diamonds that we are underexplored?
Martin, absolutely. One of the reasons why my colleague John Shelton and I vended in Rutomi into Botswana Diamonds was for that very reason. I've been in the diamond industry, embarrassingly, for over 30 years now. And if one looks at the diamond targets around the world at the moment, there are vast swathes of South Africa which haven't been looked at for 30, 40 or more years. And what is important about that is that every time there is a breakthrough in prospecting technology, there is the opportunity to find a new mine. Everyone understands the whole story around AK6 and Karowe. And if I just use that as a snapshot as an example, this was found in 1969. It was seen to be low grade, round about 2.5 carats per 100 tons, and small, round about 2.5 hectares. Fast forward into the 1990s, new ground-breaking geophysical surveys, that 2.5 became 10 hectares. New approaches to drilling, where the diamonds were broken much, much less. In those days, it was an old Stomper type drilling rig. Today, it's using reverse flood drilling. The grade went from 2.5 to 25 CPHT. So the theme there is to use what we call third generation technology to look at what the very competent explorers did 30, 40 or more years ago, and through that particular lens, see if we can't actually find something more, very much like the AK6 story.
And what do you think of the legislative environment here? You seem to been able to get your prospecting license, but there's a huge complaint that others are not. What is the legislative framework like? And if you are a discoverer, can you automatically go on and be a developer, or does someone else come in and develop?
Well, Martin, it's actually obviously a very important and topical question at the moment. One of the great things about Vitomi is we are obviously fully empowered. In fact, we're 28%, not 26%. And our empowerment partners are fully risk-shared partners. This is not some kind of vendor finance deal. So our two risk-sharing partners have put money in, just like everybody else, to develop the projects. And in fact, so much so that when we're looking at our earn-in arrangement from between Botswana Diamonds and Vitomi, we are creating a mechanism where our risk-sharing partners or our BE partners will equally share in the Botswana Diamond shares because they're business partners. And we operate, obviously, absolutely according to the law. We make our license applications. We operate probably quite below the radar screen. We're not political. All we are is we identify areas which we think are prospective. We go and engage with the DMR and with the communities and other stakeholders. We make our applications and we get our licenses. Obviously, I can't talk on behalf of other companies. And yes, I am aware that other companies do actually have challenges from it. But interestingly, there is a perception outside of South Africa that it's a very, very complicated country to work, and there are challenges to raising money to develop projects in this in this country. But exploration is a long-term game. And it's not going to be producing a mine tomorrow or the next day. You've got to go through the resource delivery pipeline. You've got to develop your studies and your feasibility studies. And I'm very convinced about the future of South Africa and the future of Africa. I've brought up my family here. I think there's no testament to that. So I firmly believe that as we actually progress down the resource pipeline, we'll gradually start to de-risk things from a political perspective. But if I could just add, yes, you've got the legislative environment on one side, but you mustn't forget we have great roads, we have great power, we have a great banking system, we have great telecommunications. And when you go north of Botswana, for example, you actually don't have a lot of that. So if we can actually simplify and resolve many of the political and legislative issues, I think this country is going to be maybe like another Botswana.
You've just returned from Botswana, an important gathering there. What was your takeaway?
I was attending the Africa Mining Summit, where I actually chaired, would you believe, a session amongst 4 cabinet ministers, led by the Minister of Mines of Botswana and the head of the Trade Commission of the African Union. And I also gave a presentation on prospectivity and country risk, which was fascinating because there we looked at what do explorers want, what does government want, and what does the financial markets want. We looked at these kind of 3 things. And what was very, very clear that came out of that conference is that Botswana clearly is highly prospective in terms of diamonds, highly prospective in terms of coal and base metals and other things, and it's a wonderful, simple legislative framework to you go in there, you've got all the information at the Geological Survey, you can apply for licenses, and there's automatic conversion once you've actually done your prospecting permits, etc. And yes, there were lots of negative vibes coming out of South Africa, but there was a sense that things will change for the better, investment will gradually start to return, and with that investment, the governments, after all, have to actually develop the country. So it's almost like that tripartite relationship between your explorers, your government, and your financiers. And I'm convinced that South Africa will start to grow in that area, and other countries around there are all competing for the same exploration dollar. One of the questions I asked the cabinet ministers is that you've got 3 minutes to present your country to a $25 billion hedge fund in New York. Sell your country. And it was really quite interesting to see the dynamics in terms of how the people can sell their country in order to actually develop what's required in the country and give the investor a return.
And how many prospects are you working on now in Southern Africa in total? And what looks like being commercial?
We've got some 20 diamondiferous kimberlites, Martin. And we've got everything in the resource pipeline from grassroots, early stage discoveries, all the way through to knocking on the door of an inferred resource. And our work at the moment is chiefly focused on the Thorny River project, where we wish to declare an inferred resource at the end of the year. And that basically means that during the course of next year, we can start work on generating an indicated resource and generating pre-feasibility studies. So that's probably closest to commercial production than actually anything else. But we'll also do work on our Ontefredum project, which is a very exciting, potentially high-grade, high-value project near Swartruggens. And we're going to be doing some drilling work there. But we're also going to be doing a bit of work on our Free State, some 11 kimberlites in the Free State, so we can gradually move them all the way up the resource pipeline. So with this diversity of our portfolio, we hope one or two or maybe more will pop and actually go all the way through.
And what is your budget of expenditure on all this? And if you had more, could you do this faster?
Martin, this is actually, this is one of the big discussions we had actually last week in Botswana, is that you've got to find a balance between minimizing shareholder dilution, especially that we actually rely on friends and family for actually much of our money, delivering your work as cheaply and efficiently as you can, and being able to raise your next money at actually a higher price. We raised £890,000 in July at 1.35p, and we gave our investors a simple work program of 5 things. Firstly, to deliver an inferred resource on Thorny River, which is our project east of Mokopane. Secondly, to continue working on our Ontefredum project, doing mineral chemistry work and whole rock geochemistry. And then thirdly, to actually start to do geophysical and ground rock, whole rock geochemistry in our Free State, contribute our 50% of our joint venture on the Sunland Minerals in Botswana with Alrosa, which is a great joint venture, and then hopefully try and untangle the Maibwe joint venture, which we have in Botswana. And we gave a timeline, and so far we're now down to October. The share price is sitting at just over, I think, 2.1. I don't look at it every day. And we have been able to achieve exactly what we've said so far, and I hope we do. But obviously, it comes a point in time where we have to go back to the market to raise money. But if we do it having delivered what we said we were doing and having delivered it to a commercial account, then hopefully the share price will be higher, and then we've got to fund it even more.
In Botswana, your partner is Alrosa. Does Alrosa also have any influence in South Africa?
Sadly, not at the moment, Martin. We have a joint venture called Sunland Minerals. It's a 50-50 joint venture. We put in 50% of the money. They put in 50% of the money. They are chiefly the operators, but we put our own geologists in there at the moment. We are in 2 areas at the moment. We're in the Central Kalahari Game Reserve, where we're looking for grassroots discoveries in the vicinity of Gargu, Petra's KX36, in that area. And secondly, in the Arapa area, where we're looking to kind of repeat an AK6 story. Sadly, they are not busy in South Africa at the moment, but we have actually started discussions to see if there is a level of interest in this country.
And Alrosa of Russia, does it have a different way of doing things that could perhaps turn things to account quicker?
Well, Alrosa is, by carats, probably the largest diamond mining company in the world. By value, I think De Beers is, and I stand to be corrected there. And yes, one of the unique things about our joint venture with Alrosa is that they can take samples in the field and turn those samples into heavy minerals, identified whether they're kimberlite or not, within 2 weeks. Typically, what happens in other companies is that could easily take 6 months to a year. So we're able to cover vast areas of ground very quickly and very efficiently. And then on top of that, They have enormous experience in geophysical technology, not just in Russia, but in Angola, where they are the operators of the Katoka mine. And I think people would have started to hear about their new discovery called Luaxi, which will soon become a major diamond producer. So they are not just busy in Russia, they have a great African footprint as well. So yes, they bring a raft of new technology, a raft of new thinking. And as you know, I spent over 20 years with De Beers, so hopefully I can bring what I knew from that time at De Beers, along with my recent history in the junior mining space too as well.
That was Creamer Media's Mining Weekly Online, speaking to James Campbell, the Managing Director of Botswana Diamonds.